Welcome, folks. Hopefully that did it. I had a little snafu with my online streaming device here, but I think we've got it up and running right now. But anyways, today's topic is off-grid. Shit hit the fan scenario. I mean, should we be prepping? Should we be going off-grid? I'm off-grid, and I've been prepping for years. And but the question is, should I step up my game? And really, I guess what I'm going to be asking today is your guys' opinion on prepping and what exactly we should be doing and what some of you have maybe done to prepare for some of the scenarios that have been playing out recently in Earth's history. I mean, the news everywhere is obviously pretty grim. You look at the wars uh, over in foreign countries that we've been fighting, between Ukraine, Russia, and between Israel and the Hamas, I guess is the word I was looking for. And you begin to wonder, like, where are we at? Where's this all going? And it seems like with the border crisis and all of the um, we have the federal government sending troops down to the border to disassemble the barriers, and we have Texas, and which apparently they're also supported by 25 other states. They're going down there to construct the border, and whether regardless of what position or side you're on, somebody is almost everybody is on at least one side or the other, and so uh, it looks to me like a possible civil war might be forming. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope this is just all a bunch of hype that's leading up to exactly nothing. I mean, we've seen stuff like this in the past, especially during the Cold War. I as a kid, I kind of caught the tail end of that. I'm 53 years old. I kind of remember a little bit of the the banter, if you will, that was being exchanged between Ronald Reagan and Gorbachev, and the Cuban Missile Crisis was a little bit before my time, but uh, and yeah, thanks for joining the live stream this morning, Margarita. Must be careful, Mexicans. Well, please explain. Yeah, I because I don't know if it's the actual Mexicans that are the problem as much as our policies that's driving this crisis and sort of spearheading an effort, if you will, to create chaos and trouble where there wasn't before. And so that's what my concern mainly is that the federal government has gone rogue, and many of the state governments have gone rogue, and they've just kind of disconnected themselves and divorced themselves one from another. I remember the last time we had a civil war, I was reading somewhere that many of the states prevented Abraham Lincoln from voting, and so if you're gonna uh, and now we have the a very similar scenario with with Donald Trump, and too damn bad. He says, "Hey, how you doing, buddy? Haven't seen you in a while. Haven't been on YouTube in a while. Actually, haven't live streamed in forever. It feels like. But backup power and water should be number one in my opinion. Obviously, food and shelter are needed, but electricity and water are the hardest to obtain in my opinion. Yeah, as far as infrastructure, I think that I, most people should be set up in some kind of a scenario where electricity is really not needed. But obviously, that's not practical for everyone. I mean, because for example, most people have water wells, and I mean, if they're living outside of town, if you're living in town with a well, then it becomes very important to store water and drinkable water, in fact. And the rest of the niceties of life, like flushing the toilet, taking a shower, and stuff like that, become kind of secondary to survival in and of itself. And it I've lived like in rentals and stuff, where things have gone bad with the water, and we've been down for 2 or 3 days. It's pretty hard to live like that, especially when you're in town. Now out here off grid, we've done without water for upwards of a week at a time, and we just seem to find ways of managing that and getting around it. And right now, I mean, I guess worst case scenario, we could start a fire and heat snow and, do sponge baths and at least, make enough water to be able to feed ourselves and things like that. But yeah, flushing toilets becomes an issue. It might not be a bad idea to go back to the old ways, as far as, outhouses and stuff like that. People for years lived without electricity and, did just fine. Now we completely rely on it. I know a lot of preppers, they have these freezers full of food filled to the top, and this is their contingency plan, and it's all, based on whether or not the power is reliable in town. And to me, it's a very fragile system, because uh, I mean, when the power went out in California, we have some real life scenarios that we can, kind of scenarios that we can look at to kind of see what exactly takes place, when these things happen. But power went out in California in sections, and people's freezers were completely, they were thawing out and everything was going bad. And obviously, you can't eat everything at once. I guess if you're really resourceful, maybe you could take all the meat that's in your freezer and jerk it out, and then, I don't know what you can do with your veggies and frozen goods and, stuff like that. Maybe start just, canning. I don't know, but that would be dependent upon your gas supply too. Uh, so I guess, ultimately, it'd be very dangerous. To me, it seems very dangerous if you're living in town. Um, uh, for a lot of these things to happen, because obviously, because you're relying on the power of power companies, you're relying on the gas companies, you're relying on all, water supply and all of these other things that can quickly just disappear in a snap of a finger. you know New Orleans was an example. When the levees broke, they didn't have clean drinking water, they didn't have food. The markets are basically dry within days, or probably less than a day. Everybody's going to rush to the markets to get what they can if they think that the supply train is gone. So there's this mad rush in day one, and probably looting and fighting in very dangerous situations in day two. And yeah, gosh, it just seems to me like it would be really wise to just stay away from cities altogether. But that's not practical for a lot of people. Now, a buddy of mine, John, he was telling me how in Washington, I guess, he went over there for a simple Thanksgiving dinner. And parts of Washington are not really, they don't have the infrastructure to deal with a lot of snow. And so I guess at some point, um, it started to snow, right? And they knew they were going to get socked in, so they thought, well, we'll just go to the market, we'll get a few things, we'll come back, we'll have Thanksgiving dinner the next day, and then following day, everybody, hopefully things are better. So they had the Thanksgiving, things went uneventful. The following day, they woke up and they said, oh, well, let's go to the store again. So this was day two of the storm, and most of the city had shut down. They went to the store and the shelves were empty. So it doesn't take any time at all when we don't have transportation. All right, too damn bad. No matter what we do, none of us are getting out of the world alive. All we can do is prepare for hard times and hope we make it back to good times again. Well, that is the hope of a lot of people. And I started out this not podcast. I do a weekly podcast, so it rolls off my tongue. As I started this live stream, I kind of mentioned, I hope this is all just blows over, if you will. But, it's just this looming doom seems to be hovering. This cloud of doom seems to be hovering over that tells me that we're in for it. If not tomorrow, if not next week, if not next month, sooner or later things just keep deteriorating. Our banks are closing. Our just everything just seems to be closing down. A lot of companies are closing down. We've seen where some of these big food producers are actually burning up mysteriously. The fires in Hawaii was very mysterious. Everything just seems to be sort of like pointing in a certain direction. And of course, I'm a very religious person. I don't know if I'll interject that into this podcast or not. And I have a lot of, biblical, reasoning behind what's going on and things of that nature. But I'll spare that. You know, if you guys want to listen to some more of that type of stuff, I have a whole different podcast called Prophecy Montana here on YouTube as well. You guys can subscribe to that if you'd like. We talk about, you know, scenarios almost weekly, and kind of keep up to date on the news and stuff. That's really what takes most of my time is that podcast, actually. And so, yeah, I seem to, you know, well, I definitely lean towards biblical explanations as far as, you know, what's taking place in the world and stuff. But we're going to keep it, you know, just sort of non. Well, I don't know. I'll leave it up to you guys. If you guys put some comments out there, I'll definitely answer them, and we can talk about it. But I'll let you guys set the tone of what kind of takes place on this live stream, if you would. But yeah, no, I don't see anything, you know, real redeemable in the in today's atmosphere. You know, I mean, when you take the temperature of world events, it looks really grim. So, but as far as prepping goes, you know, I have a room that I thought was going to be big enough, you know, and we started buying, you know, 5-gallon buckets, and we started, you know, vacuum packing, like, let's say, rice, beans, all dry goods, because I don't like to rely, even though I'm off grid and I make my own power, I don't like to rely on power to you know, to be able to preserve my food, although I do have a freezer. And especially during the wintertime, it's easy to keep it frozen, you know, even without power. But, you know, we started vacuum packing, like, let's say, flour. And there's a way that you can do that, you know, where you take the little paper towel and you put it in there, and, you know, a certain wind, and so it doesn't suck up the flour into the machine. And we've had flour that we've opened that's been packaged for 3 years, and we try to rotate our goods, you know, and it's still just as fresh as the day we put it in there. It really works good. And we've done that with white and wheat. I would like to hear your opinions, religious or not. Okay, man, here you go. It's funny because I was kind of even debating whether or not to do this right now, because every time I do a live like this, I lose a lot of subscribers, and I thought, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to do it. You know, people don't like it, then they don't like it, and that's just what it is. But so you know, in the Bible, well, I mean, geez, I don't even know where to start. There's so much to say about it. But basically, you know, we're given the prophecies in Revelation. And it actually goes further back than that. It actually starts back in the book of Daniel, because Daniel really unlocks, if you will, all of the symbols of Revelation. For example, if you go to Daniel chapter 7, you know, it tells you that a beast power is a nation, because it says that the 4 beasts which thou sawest are 4 nations, or 4 kings that shall rise upon the earth. And that was the lion, the bear, the leopard, and the dragon, the nondescript beast that was given to us in Daniel. I'm going to give you the juiced version, because there's a lot to this. I use small paper bags, lunch bag style, when vacuum sealing powders. That's a good idea. But yeah, if you use that little paper towel and you stick it in there, that works good too. So anyways, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome is what all the Protestant fathers had believed. Basically, that's the historical reckoning of the 4 beasts of Daniel, and that takes us all the way into the modern era. Daniel chapter 2 has the big metal image, head of gold, chest of silver, thighs of brass, and legs of iron, and feet of iron and clay, all representing different kingdoms too, because, you know, Daniel had the same dream as the king did, and he told the king the interpretation of it, and he said, well, thou, O king, art thou head of gold, but after thee shall arise a nation inferior to thee. There's a principle in Bible prophecy, I think, that many of us don't know or aren't taught in the churches anymore, and that is, it's a very simple principle. It's called nothing new, only more detail. So way back in Daniel chapter 2, it gives us all the kingdoms from Daniel's time all the way to the very end of time, and then it repeats it in Daniel chapter 7, and it repeats it again in Daniel chapter 8, and then you get to Revelation 13, and it picks up, and it repeats it again, but keeps adding more detail. And in Revelation 17, repeats it again. And so if you reckon Bible prophecy like that, it's that's what makes the most sense to me. But anyways, it takes us into modern times. It tells us that basically in chapter 13 of Revelation is where we catch up. Uh, and oh yeah, I was talking about the different nations: Babylon, Medo, Persia, Greece, and Rome. And then the 10 toes were the 10 divisions of Europe. And of course, what we pick up in Revelation chapter 13, where basically it starts off with pagan Rome, and then it ends up with America, and the two-horned beast, the lamb-like beast with the two horns, spake as a dragon. You know, it was a Christian nation, came up out of the earth. All the other ones rose up out of the sea, populous areas, things of that nature. But this was the only nation that would rise up out of like a desolate area, or the earth, if you will. And so it speaks specifically of America. Now, America, according to Bible prophecy, will stand until the very end. It will not be overcome by any other nation. It'll be the last nation, last superpower on earth, up until the very end. But they are working hard to destroy it, aren't they? And I believe that that the devil is doing that on purpose, you know, to thwart the purpose and the purposes of God, you know, basically. I mean, that's because he's always done that. He's always tried to thwart the prophecies of God. And so, you know, all these signs, all these things that we see are indicators. And if you read Matthew chapter 24, it's the you know, what many have called the mini apocalypse, and that sort of outlines in, you know, in a very condensed version, you know, all of these events: wars, rumors of wars, famines, pestilences, you know, on and on. And it says, therefore, when you see all these things, you know, how does it say that? This generation shall not pass until all should be fulfilled. In other words, well, what's a generation? You know, so when we see all, you know, earthquakes in diverse places, you know, and famines, pestilence. You know, I mean, there's always been earthquakes, but they've increased in intensity and in magnitude, right? Always been natural disasters. Again, intensity and frequency have increased. You know, volcanic activity, earthquakes, tidal actions, all of these things. And it's interesting how the Bible seems to kind of point out. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that try to make politics and fit that into the Bible. You know, with me, I might have expressed this before, but I think it's very dangerous to be politically active at this point. You know, I know it's almost unpatriotic to say, you know, it sounds unpatriotic to say that, but I believe both sides are working for the same purpose. You know, it's the king of the north, king of the south scenario. And, you know, they seem to oppose one another, but they sit at the same table. And so we have people, you know, Donald Trump and Joe Biden. It couldn't be two more different individuals, but I think they've both been carefully chosen for the job at hand. I mean, that's my opinions on that. And so I try not to go too far one way or another. You know, when it comes to constitutional rights and things like that, I'm very, very firm on that. You know, I'm a big Second Amendment believer. I believe strongly in the Second Amendment. I believe strongly in the freedom of speech. I believe strongly in, you know, representation and you know, the right to speedy trial and all of the other things that made America so great as a Protestant republic. And yeah, it's going to be a shock to some people to hear that, but you know, we were never a democracy ever. It was always a republic. A democracy is how it's been described to me is 3 wolves and 2 sheep voting what's for dinner, and a republic is a well-armed militia refuting that vote, if that makes sense. And I know that sounds a little antiquated by a lot of people. Now, as far as the Civil War goes, should we get involved with it? 1,000% no. Stay away from that. It is a terrible, evil trap. And, you know, just like the 9/11, or excuse me, the September 11th, the Capitol riots, anyways. My brain's not giving me the date right now. It's had a little snafu there. But, you know, everybody that went there, you know, is being prosecuted for their efforts to support their candidate of choice. And the Civil War is going to be very similar. The Civil War is basically, I mean, if they do have a Civil War, like I said, I'm not a prophet. I'm no son of a prophet. I can kind of see what's going to happen. I can make a general educated guess, like most of you guys, and that's about it. But if a Civil War does take place, and I believe it probably will, and I also believe it's probably planned out. It is actually planned out very well. I mean, they want the Civil War because if they can put a leader in place, now listen to me, if they can take and put a leader in place, January 6th, thank you. Um, if they can put a leader in place and surpass all of the usual checks and balances, uh, then how much power would he have? See, because a civil war sounds good to people because they're like, yeah, finally, we're going to drain the swamp. We're going to get rid of those rats. We're going to get rid of all these stinky politicians, these with the child sex rings and all these other things that are going on allegedly, right? Um, and we're going to get some good people in there that's going to rule this country. Well, guess what? They've already chosen who they're going to put in place. They've already predetermined uh, uh, the outcome of this. All right, and the outcome is basically we're gonna supersede all of the checks and balances, everything that would normally keep the politicians in check. And yeah, they still kind of work. I mean, even though they're kind of not working, they kind of do work. There are some good people in there working on our behalf. There's a lot of bad people in there too. But let's just say you erase all that and you just put this dictator in charge now. What's going to happen? What's that going to look like? And you know, it scares me, quite frankly. A lot of people are pro Donald Trump. I get that. A lot of people are pro Biden. I get that. Um, it seems like as political lines are and always have been, you have to choose your party, irregardless of whether you believe everything in the party or not. And you kind of make your lines, if you will, draw the line in the sand. And it's kind of an unfortunate scenario for most Americans, because Americans have always been free thinkers, and we've always respected the freedom of choice and freedom of thought of our fellow people, right? I mean, listen, it was said by somebody once long ago, look, I've disagreed with everything you say thus far, but hey, I'm willing to go to war and defend it because, it's your personal opinion, it's your personal thoughts, and that's what I need to defend, is what you believe and not what I believe. Because if I'm defending what you believe, then I'm defending my beliefs too. But if I only defend me and you're defending you, and then by the time the smoke clears, then we've limited what our brothers can think, right? And so there's a terrible danger and there's arguments on both sides of that. I have friends on both sides of the political parties, and they both vehemently tell me, well, we got to defend our rights for abortion, let's say. Okay, let's pick one. Because if we don't, we're going to lose it, and it's already being compromised, and this and that, and blah blah blah. And then you have the people on the right saying, well, we have to defend our right to the Second Amendment. We have to defend our right to, free speech and all of these other things that's being compromised. To me, the Constitution is the ultimate, and we have constitutional lawyers that try and figure out what is allowed and what's not allowed. To me, but shall not be infringed is pretty clear, and there's been a lot of infringements on those lately. It seems funny that it's almost like government, they make huge money off of the sales of arms, for example. Pardon me. And every time they go to pass one of these bills, or they throw out one of these big scares, firearm sales go right through the roof, don't they? And then they get their cut, they get their dividends, their taxes for it, if you will. And arms is, the selling of arms is huge business. But like Australia, they've all but given up their rights. Britain, they've all but given up their rights. I mean, they're allowed under certain, you know, conditions to own, certain, you know, weapons, like a shotgun or a, I think pistols are very iffy in those places. But the the right to keep and bear arms is a very important one for all people and parties that are a part of America, basically, because it protects our rights. People are like, well, how in the world can it protect your rights? Uh, an AR-15 up against an Apache helicopter. Well, it's not quite like that. You have to look back in history at what, let's say, for example, North Vietnam did with just simple, mainly hand weapons. They had some tanks, they had some mortars, they had some other things, but basically it was a force of individuals that were able to defend against foreign entities that were coming in and telling them how to live their life. And of course, I think the way that whole thing ended was bad. It all ended badly for the people. Of course, after the war, after the government no longer needed the people to lay down their life for the government, they took all the weapons back, of course, and now they're just they're completely ruling and with an iron fist over there. So well, especially Korea, right? North Korea, that's another terrible example of what happened there. Yeah, just give up your rights. We'll take care of you guys. Give us more power, and we'll make sure that we remember who you guys are as patrons, as good patrons, and then we'll take care of you. So that's why communism never works. As the example, I mean, the ideology. Look, man, I've studied it. I know it sounds great. It sounds really, really good on the surface, but it doesn't work in the ultimate scenario, because there's no such thing as a benevolent leader. Every leader has to have overlookers. They have to have people that constantly keep them in check. But I kind of went on a rant there, guys. Sorry about that. So any other ideas as far as food storage and maybe some ideas with electricity? I mean, because, the answer really isn't all, yeah, most people have generators, right? But you can only run a generator for so long with so many gallons of gas. And of course, as we saw when the power went down in California, they weren't pumping gas either. And so our system is very fragile, and it's held together by a shoestring, if you will, because an attack at any given part of that infrastructure can quickly disable it and render it virtually useless. And so it's very important that people understand that, and so generators are okay. I guess you can get propane. Propane lasts for a long time. I've seen people get the 500-gallon tanks of propane on standby with their generator and everything, and that's all going to work okay. Now, somebody who's had a generator, I'm running it right now because of the weather up here. It finally snowed. Oh, good grief. A week ago, we had 70-degree weather and warmed up everything. The lakes were melting. We were basically getting break up on the rivers and everything. And now we have snow. So what a mess it's out there on the road. It's just slushy and there's mud and all of that. Lost my train of thought. Generators. So I have a generator and I run it regularly, and I can tell you generators break down. They need parts, and I've kind of perfected mine over the years. My neighbors, they have the generators as well. I'm actually in a community of probably maybe 1,000 or more individuals that are all off grid, and so we kind of exchange ideas. And I still think my idea of the generator is the best. I have my inverter. I have several generators. Okay, I have a backup generator, but my main generator is actually just a belt-driven alternator. I have a video of it on my channel actually, and it actually just goes straight to my batteries and it charges my batteries, and then I just run my power off my inverter. So if my generator dies, there's no switching, there's no loss of lights, there's no nothing. It just continually has power to the system, and then when my inverter, when the battery voltage goes down below a certain, and eventually maybe I'll want to make that automatic, but that's just more things to go wrong. The way I got it right now, it's a lot of manual things, you know, putting gas in manually and starting it manually and all that. But it works, and it's worked for many years, and it's worked flawlessly. And it's worked so well that the spark plug wire has actually worn itself down to the point where it's almost almost won't stay on the spark plug anymore. How you doing, Clancy? Yeah, I'm talking to the camera here. My son just walked in. So Too Damn Bad says, hopefully the paper bag thing made sense. I pack powders in the bag, roll it up, and tape it shut. Vacuum seal it. It keeps powder from ruining your sealer. I also recently bought oxygen absorbers. Oh yeah, I want to try those too. We just bought some Mylar bags. Hang on, no matter. Okay, hang on. You said something. I'm gonna scroll through your comments here. I use small paper bags, lunch bag style, when vacuum sealing powders. Yeah, that was a little bit confusing, but now you're saying paper bag thing made sense. I pack powder. Okay, I also bought desiccant packs. Anything I can do to aid in food storage. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, getting back to the Mylar bags. Yeah, we just bought a whole bunch of those, and yeah, we bought the 5-gallon one so we can put it in a Home Depot bucket, let's say, because that was a big mistake that we made. We packed a lot of beans and rice and things like that into a Home Depot bucket, just the regular Home Depot buckets, thinking, well, what the heck? We'll just throw it in the regular bucket. I mean, who needs a food grade bucket? How bad can it be? It was actually pretty bad. So we opened up some beans after a couple years, and they definitely had that plasticky smell to them. And we cooked them and we fed them to the chickens, and chickens made eggs, and we ate the eggs. That's how that worked. So nothing's ever a complete waste. And remember, if you have a garden, beans and rice are also a great nitrogen source if your food products go bad. I mean, that's the what if your food goes bad in storage, you know. You can still use it for fertilizer. So I also switched to mason jars to vacuum seal pastas in place of bags. You know, we've been thinking about doing that. The mason jars here are a little scarce. I know and we've been also looking into those resealable lids because we've been doing a lot of canning, especially this year. We've been doing a lot with the pressure cooker. We pressure cooked some trout a few years back, and oh boy, that was good. There was a recipe. You put a little oil, a little salt, let me see, the fish, and you pack it with a little bit well, there was a recipe anyways. And my goodness, yeah, you pressure cook it for like an hour and a half on high, and it tasted like a really mild, because I love sardines, but it tasted like a really mild sardine. It was really good. We've also been pressure cooking all of our, I mean, technically you don't have to because it's got acid in it, but like our tomatoes, I've been growing Roma tomatoes in the greenhouse. Okay, so Gap Creek Survivor has asked, how is the wind turbine holding up? Very well, actually, very well. And for those of you that don't know, I've got an Istabreeze I-1500, and it's been a fantastic machine. I just don't have a lot of wind here. We do get wind, like right now we got a snowstorm and the flakes are just coming down in beautiful little flakes, just straight down, not even a puff of wind out there, and no sunshine either. So I got the generator running, like I mentioned. But highly recommend that machine. Now, I've built my wind generators before. Hopefully, like, I'll get some time I'm wanting to build another wind generator. There's more and more people moving up here. There's some friends that are moving up on the hill up there. Some property came up first. Was that you, Too Damn Bad, that was looking for property? I know I was talking to either you or one other fella. And there is a real estate guy up here that's very active. And if you guys want to email me at glowbugmartin@gmail.com, I can give you his number and help you guys out with finding property. Because like the bumper sticker says, Montana is the last best place. And of course, I am a transplant. I'm not a native, although it's kind of a weird story because my family is from here. So people are like, where are you from? I'm California. Oh, no, you're one of those people. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. You guys are moving in and wrecking the whole place. Well, no, I'm not. Well, my family kind of helped found Bozeman, you know, the Rouses. And my wife's Native American, so she's kind of from the Blackfoot Reservation, but she was born and raised in California. She just recently came up here and found her roots and found her people, if you will. And gosh, I didn't think anybody acted like my wife until I met some Blackfoot Native women, and they're they're just mean like my wife, you know. No, she's not mean. Anyways, so so yeah, so I encourage people to get the heck out of town, man. Get the heck out of Dodge while you can. I mean, it's scary moving out of state. It's scary moving to some place that you don't know, with a lot of unknown variables, and I think that's what most people get stopped with. You know, is that, well, I need to raise, you know, X amount of dollars. I need to get this in order, and I need to get that in order. You know, when we moved out of California, we were basically kicked out of California. I mean, that's what it felt like, literally. Like, yep, still looking for property. Haven't heard back from the realtor in several months, though. Okay, so I hit them up again, because they just had some property. There's a piece of land right above us that's still for sale, and they go pretty fast. I think he's wanting 50K, 10 acres. The price keeps going up. It's just, you know, and I'm afraid when it starts going the other way, that a lot of us may or may not have jobs. Who knows? Especially with the way the economy is going, the banks are closing down. Don't put too much money in the bank. I mean, you know, I don't want to tell you guys how to do your stuff financially, because I'm probably the worst person to learn that from. I don't have good financial sense. I got inherited from my dad. It's terrible. But yeah, there's a nice piece of property up there for 50,000, and I know the guy that's selling it, and he's willing to take 10% down. So, you know, what's that, $5,000? And so it's an excellent deal. And so I would. I think you said you lived in Billings, so that wouldn't be too big of a move for you. But some of the people, like from, you know, across the country or whatever, I mean, you know, people watch my channel from other parts of the world. A lot of people from Australia, from Britain, from Africa, you know, all over the place. And so, you guys have, you know, kind of filled me into on some of your guys' off-grid setups and things of that nature. And some of them are pretty darn impressive. I know we got Blue Horse that lives up the road here, and he's got a heck of an impressive system. He's got all lithium batteries. He's probably got, you know, 20,000 watts of solar on his array. He's got a great big, you know, gen set that's propane, turns on automatically. Everything was professionally done, so very top notch. Although, even though that system is very nice, you need like a technician to come in and work on that sort of scenario. Mine's very kind of haphazard and helter-skelter, and just kind of all cobbled together. But like, I know everything about it. Like if anything goes wrong with that, it's been pretty reliable. Like, I know exactly where to go to fix whatever's going on. And so there are pros and cons to that. A lot of people aren't savvy with electricity, you know, and it's very intimidating when they come, you know, and move into a place like this and they're off grid. And by the way, a lot of people do move out here and just kind of peter out. They came with a bad, I don't think people come with a bad plan. They just come with a bad expectation. Their expectations are blown because they get out here and things are a little harder than they had thought. And the mental toughness, you know, I mean, to come out here and build a house, and to be off grid and to use an outhouse, and a lot of people spend years without taking showers on a regular basis because they don't have their stuff set up properly, and they're living out of trailers and the water freezes and just a lot of hardships. And I've kind of, you know, went through a few of those on some of my videos. So it can be a daunting task, and if you're setting up a system, like let's say with batteries and an inverter and a charge controller and solar panels, you're just like, oh, you know, my buddy up here, Aaron, he's I don't know, he might watch this video, so I won't say anything about his business. He's got a pretty cool business though. He bows and arrows and stuff, but he's invented some things for that. And it's kind of going through some litigation with him and his wife. So I'll kind of keep that secret for now. But he didn't know anything about off-grid living, and he just, you know, with the divorce and everything, he just kind of found himself up here. Boom. And he had a trailer, and he had a truck, And okay, where do I go from here? Okay, I need a battery. All right, so I can charge the battery with my generator for a little while, but then it'd be nice to have a solar panel. So he got some solar panels, and he kind of YouTubed a bunch of stuff, and he learned how to hook a solar panel, and he asked me questions, and I helped him out the best I could. But he learned most of it basically on his own, and next thing you know, he's got a pretty good setup now. He's got his house built. He never built a house before, never even nailed two pieces of wood together. He's been working down there at Lowe's, and Lowe's has been going through a lot of changes here in Bozeman, and so a lot of clearances, and he got a lot of good deals on lumber, a lot of good deals on roofing, all kinds of stuff, and kind of, manager type special. And he calls me up. Oh, yeah, too damn bad says TV series Yellowstone is inflating people's heads. That is so true. Like, who's that so-called tough guy on Yellowstone? The guy walking around with a jacket. I like to see that image up here a lot now. Everybody's like these little short guys jumping out of these great big pickup trucks with the black jackets, and they're, walking all tough with their beards and stuff. And I just shaved mine off. Yeah, it's a little cold. But yeah, we get a lot of people moving up here, and not all of them are prepared for what's going on. We had 40 below weather a couple weeks ago, more than a couple weeks ago. Yeah, it's been a month. It's been about a month, I guess. 40 below. Yeah, that was some real stuff there. Actually, we were high and dry, man. We have a fireplace. We have propane heat, and I just turned my propane heat all the way down to the minimum. Just stoked that fire full blast, and man, we were warm and toasty. And we had sunshine during that real low temp, so my solar panel gave us all the power we needed. I was out there casting bullets, and we were, doing laundry and taking showers and all of the stuff. And but my neighbors were not having a good time of it. Many of them had, they couldn't get their generator started because I don't know if any of you guys live in a warm environment and you try to start a generator when it's 40 below, it is 100% impossible. You're pulling on that cord and it goes, and you just cannot get that thing turned over. So the secret is you got to get thin motor oil. I get even sometimes the 520, or they make a thinner one than that, even a 510 or 515 or something like that. And if I see cold weather like that coming, I'll put that real thin motor oil in there. And then with this 40 below, that still didn't do it. It was still, I was pulling as hard as I could. I couldn't get it going. Had my sons pull on. They're big, strong, strapping young men. And so I took my torch, and you got to keep your torch inside where it's warm. If it's outside, it's too cold and it freezes and it won't work. So you got to keep your torch inside, and then you take it outside when you're ready to warm it up, and you play that flame around the cylinder head, and you give it about 5 minutes with that torch, and then you crank on it 4 or 5 times, and boom, fires right up. But yeah, my neighbors, they were without power. They were having, their goats were kidding, and they had to put people do what they have to do up here, they had to put the kids in the car, baby goats, and turn the heater on and keep them from freezing to death. And yeah, it was rough. 40 below is rough stuff, man. We don't get that all the time here. So like places in Alaska, they're ready for that kind of weather all the time. But we'll get below zero on a regular. But man, when you get that minus, that really hardcore minus, I stay home. I don't go nowhere. I just shut the work down, like everybody knows. Like, don't even call me. I'm camping out, baby. And so then I'll start whittling on my arrows and things like that to keep myself busy. But yeah, no, look, I would encourage anybody that's living outside of, or living in town or something, to really seriously consider, thoughtfully consider getting out of town. Is it too late? It's never too late to start moving in a direction. You know what I'm saying? Because if you got the mentality, well, it's too late, we just got to hunker down. If you see, if shots are fired and the Civil War breaks out, yeah, then it's probably too late to start thinking about, actually moving out of town. But I don't know. Like I said, I think the Civil War is just going to be one big coup. They're going to put somebody in power. It's going to look a lot like a dictator, and they're going to start really telling us what to do. And that's going to be terrible for a lot of people. And, the whole idea that we're going to stand our ground and we're just going to shoot our way out of this. I talked about that a little bit and gave some examples, but honestly, I don't know if the American people are ready for that sort of a conflict. I mean, we saw I go back to New Orleans. The National Guard was going door to door confiscating weapons, and people were just giving them to them, because if you guys remember, they had like a neighborhood watch where they're putting people on the roofs and stuff. Now during the Watts riots, that worked with the what were they? The Koreans. The Koreans actually effectively guarded their little areas of the neighborhood. They had, sentinels, positioned in different parts of the roof structures where they could watch the entrances of their businesses, and none of their places were looted. So that's what the Second Amendment's all about. But as far as like the I don't want to group everybody in this, because there are some true grit Americans out there that are really willing to lay it down, and probably more here in Montana and some of the western, Midwestern states than anywhere else. Although they're even in California, I've seen some true patriots that live out there as well. But fewer and fewer. We're getting more and more diluted. Our kids and our grandkids are just being pumped with propaganda. Geez, I remember, but raising kids, I used to stick my kids in front of the babysitter all the time, give them a video game, put them in front of SpongeBob, whatever they were watching. That's all propaganda, man. Keep your kids away from that stuff. Keep your kids away from daycare. Homeschool if you can. If you can't, put them in a private school. If you can't do that, then just closely monitor them. And when they come home from school, make sure that you constantly are talking to them and letting them know what's right and what's wrong according to how you see the worldview. Otherwise, somebody else is going to teach them what they want to teach them, and your kids one day are going to grow up, and you're not going to recognize them. And I say that with some with some experience. You know what I'm saying? Again, I got 3 boys and I've got 2 grandsons so far. And my grandsons are wonderful, but they've got a mother that doesn't think a lot like we do, if you will. And so there's that little conflict that's going on, and so yeah, be careful who you marry, be careful how you raise your kids, be careful how you live your life, and but shoot, am I boring you guys to tears yet? What else you guys want to talk about? I mean, I can just kind of ramble on endlessly about almost nothing. But, well, yeah, it's been a long time since I've done a live stream. And I would like to start doing some regular ones. I just got really discouraged, like I said before, every time I would do a live stream, and I'd probably have already lost subscribers on this one. But I look at there and the subscribers just start, disappearing. And who knows? Maybe those aren't people I want on my, on my podcast, on my channel anyways. People that have such sensitive feelings, and no matter what you talk about, you're just going to offend them no matter what. I mean, as Americans, as Australians, as Africans, as whoever, whatever country you are listening to this, it's important to know that, look, man, your neighbor's opinion matters. And you may not agree with it. Like, my sons, I don't agree with everything my sons do, but I love them. You know what I'm saying? You got to love your fellow countrymen, and regardless of how they think. And this is how we can combat what's taking place, because the powers to be are really capitalizing on the quickness of individuals to villainize the other person for how they think or how they believe. We have a whole history that's littered with these types of scenarios. And so we can prolong it somewhat if we as individuals will not be so quick to judge other people. Let them live their life, live and let live, like the old adage goes, and to be able to allow other people to do what they want to do. I've got neighbors up the road, they smoke weed, they grow weed. I don't smoke weed. All right, more power to them. Have at it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna think of them evil because of what they do. And and I've got neighbors over here. They got their horses. Some people say, oh, these people shouldn't have horses, blah, 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 because of this or because of that. They don't know what they're doing. Let them have horses. It's their damn land. Let them have horses. Leave them alone. Mind your own business. This is where the trouble comes in, is where we start trying to interject our lives in other people's lives and telling them what to do. You know, when you walk into a store, this blew my mind during the pandemic. Put your mask on. It's like, dude, no, I'm not putting my mask on. Like, you can wear your mask and you're fine, okay? I'm not going to tell you what to do, but don't tell me what to do. You know, you guys know what I'm saying. And no, go ahead. More power to you. Do your thing, man. Those things were all designed to divide us as well. And it worked pretty darn good, didn't it? I mean, people were getting shot over some of these issues. And I'll tell you what, my blood pressure went up on several occasions. And I had to set myself down and give myself a talking to, because it's like, well, you know, we can't let divisive, you know, things, you know, work against us in such a terrible way. Well, we're at 50 minutes, guys. How are we doing so far? Should we keep going? I'm probably going to have to head upstairs a little bit and get some food, but it's been fun having a live stream. Maybe I'll drop in and see you guys every Sunday, same time, 5 o'clock Mountain Time. Was it 5 o'clock? Yeah, because it's almost 6 now. Yeah, we started a live stream a little bit late. That's right, because had some troubles with signing in on the channel. But yeah, man, thanks for watching, guys. And if you guys haven't subscribed already, maybe consider doing that. Give the channel a thumbs up, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Yeah, share my videos as well. You guys know the routine. Hey, God bless, and thanks so much for hanging in there thus far, folks. All right.